everyone, and welcome to Awakening Your Inner Genius podcast. We have online today, we've got Miss Margaret Rue, which is one of our board members of the University of Science and Philosophy, as our guest here today. Answer some deep-hearted questions. She is actually lived with Leo Russell for 10 years. It's funny because we'll have some stories to tell about that. So there's a lot going to be unfolding on this session. And we've got Mr. Porter and John Bonzel, Jim Porter and John Bonzel, and they are longtime students. We got an ex-president of the University of Science and Philosophy, and Jim has been his cohort for 50 plus years on this message. And Margaret too. God, you guys, we got some good classic stuff coming up, and we got Karen Elkins, who brings us all of our Science to Sage magazine for 16 years and been studying the Walter Russell science and here working with us on this home study course. So thank you everyone for being here. And we're going to start out with a little meditation just to kind of get centered up here. And we'll have a little music. We'll take a couple minutes and then we're going to get into some of the question and answers about meditation. So this will be a good experience. We can go full screen on that, and then what we do is just kind of unwind. This is where we're in meditation. We're trying to forget our body. I like the idea of like when you're daydreaming, if you think about it, you're not really thinking about anything. Your mind is full, but there's no real parts to it. And that's kind of the state for me when I get into meditation. I like to go into that stillness. And the way I get there is I kind of daydream. So forget your body. The idea is to forget all your thinking elements that go through your brain and to just quiet down your thinking. So when I'm thinking hard, I wind it. It's like winding up an old spring clock or winding up an old toy. When you're thinking hard, you wind it up and then you release it and it takes off. And that's concentration, is winding it up. And decentration is letting it all go. So it's an unwinding of your thinking. I like to think of it, not think of it, but I feel like my thoughts get longer and longer rather than shorter and shorter is concentration. Longer and longer is decentration. So just take a minute to relax, settle yourself in your chair. I like to close my lids because it allows me to get out of that thinking brain and let my thoughts get longer and longer and listen to the sounds of the ocean. And think of the beauty of the ocean. And let yourself settle in to that nice, easy flow of nature, which is omnipresent. And that means it's everywhere all the time. God centers everything, and God is outside of everything. So right now we're going to the center. We do this by unwinding. Try and find that quiet place where you can just let everything go and get out of your thinking. Sometimes it's thinking of a good piece of music, and there's no better music to me than the sound of the ocean and nature. It's rhythmic, it's tonal, but it's rhythmic also if you really listen to it. Let's listen to the waves for a second. And just breathe it in. And unwind that spring. Let those thoughts just get longer and longer. I like to think about a dark hole in space and just let the thoughts fall into that dark hole where they just disappear. Just keep the thought comes up, you throw it in that dark hole. Envision a dark hole and just let it go. And it's that timeless moment. We can come back now. It's that timeless moment that we're looking for. And we're going to talk a little bit more about meditation. You guys want to come on back, and we don't want to go too far into it, so we'll lose everybody. But we're going to come back now to more of a concentrative state. If you should be able to feel that decentrative state of unwinding, and then now we're going to come back and we're going to do some studying and talking and breaking down these principles and how to apply them in your life today. This is all about an application today. So really these words are so powerful. You have to be studied over and over, but you have such an arsenal of experts online, guys. You're going to have a lot of fun. So we're going to start on the first paragraph on 151, James. actually has an announcement. I'm sorry, James has an announcement. We'll call him back on right now. He's going to talk a little bit about this YouTube channel. James is our producer, technical producer, along with Joey. Go ahead, James.
Hello, everyone. So I just wanted to
Hi,
share with
James.
you really quickly that we have a 24/7 live stream for you to meditate or play ocean sounds if you ever wanted to just have this in the background. So as most of you are probably watching here on YouTube, you can just go, you'll see that we are live all the time. And right now it is just this ocean stream. As you can see, we have some chat over here if you wanted to chat with people, as well as some future plans for this live channel. So we have all kinds of cool things coming: video clips, guided meditations, sessions, live Q&A segments, artist spot. There's all kinds of really fun plans for this live channel. And so if you have any ideas or thoughts about what you would like to see here, feel free to share them in the comments or email us at awakenyourinnergenius@gmail.com.
Thank you, James. And there's a lot goes into these podcasts. This doesn't just come together easy, and it's the passion and genius that you're witnessing. And if you stick with this, you'll see organic growth that will happen as you begin to study this material, and it becomes a part of you and your thinking and your being, as it is us, as we're talking about here tonight. So if James, if you could go to 151 and that first paragraph there, I was going to go ahead and have John Bonzel read that one, and just this is kind of an introduction of what we're all seeking, really. Go ahead, John.
Very good, Ken. Thank you. How often we have told you that the greatest miracle which can happen to you is the discovery of your inner immortal self. We would say that again and again, 1,000 times, until you fully know that the kingdom of heaven is really within yourself. Let us add to it by telling you that one inspiring hour alone with God, in communion with him in his light, is worth more to you than all the possessions of all the earth, all of its jewels, its gold, yes, even its richest thrones. That's pretty powerful stuff there, Kenneth.
Yes, sir. Can you break that down? What is it? What's the application to you? What does that mean to you as the art you create and the passion you create? You're out there creating right now, as a matter of fact.
Well, people, we'll just talk about people in general. They're controlled by their bodies, and they're controlled by their surroundings. And I don't know that they ever give themselves a chance to reflect and say, who am I and what am I? And that's what this paragraph is saying to these people, is that you are the greatest miracle that's ever happened. You've been created directly from God. And you should try to not see God as an external thing, being, presence, light, whatever, but something that's part of you, ongoing and forever and never separate from it. And so what they're saying in that paragraph is, if you could just experience that just for a few moments, you would disregard everything materially that you think had some kind of great value to you. And so that's the dichotomy in which we live in. And so it's, if we could get people to live more, in mind than matter, be a wonderful place.
Jim, what's your interpretation of that paragraph? How would you apply that to tell others?
Be happy to answer
that in terms
Karen
of
had her
finding
hand
that within.
Karen had her hand up before me.
Oh, hi, Karen.
Okay,
Karen, we'll go with Karen.
I would like to speak to that in one way. In every beings and light bodies, even Einstein said that we are light and we are light beings. And when we think about that, there's only 3 things that make matter, that make life itself, and that's light. So it's water, particles, and light. And each one of them triangulates as a beautiful prism of light, and it works as a recycling system. All of that is what makes up our entire universe, but it also makes up you. So you and the universe are literally one, and you are just nothing but particles of light. And if we can understand that, and when we sit to contemplate the whole nature of light within, then we know that it's not just within, it's without, it's here, there, and everywhere. And a fractal pattern is like your hand. It unfolds everything from a tree to your body to every piece of everything. So God is literally within you. You and God are one. You are in symphony. You are light little beings, and each one of the particles that makes a cannon or makes a gem or whatever, we're all different geometries, period, but they're all prisms of light. So it's beautiful. It's not abstract, it's actually scientific, and that's part of the Walter Russell philosophy of natural law. You are that law. You are light. You literally are that white light. We're just bands of the light. That's my thought. Next.
Hey, Jim. Oh, is that you done?
That's
good. That was really good. I love that. Yeah, man. Get into the prisms. Come on.
That's our cat, and I'm alone in the
There
room,
you
so
go.
I can't escort him out. So please forgive his presence. His name is Tigger, and he's a curious creature. That is a body that
So how
knows
do we
itself
find the kingdom
body
within,
only.
Jim?
Hang on. What you just saw is a body that knows itself as body only. It hasn't yet evolved the ability to question existence. It just is body. We, humanity, have taken that giant step that Russell's talk about to consciousness. We've been consciously aware and be able to question the universe and our place in it. That is the beginning of the gift. So many of us think, well, we're not even on the road to enlightenment yet. Yes, you are. The last age or so that has passed is you in a stage of enlightenment. Russell's referred to it as the pagan barbarian stage. Now we're about to leave that stage en masse and move to the genius stage, where we will begin to work knowingly with God and not thinking ourselves body as much. We will be able to put the body self aside and accomplish magnificent, marvelous things. And I'm talking tens upon tens upon tens of thousands right now on the planet that will fast develop into millions, that will cause a transition into the new age that, looking back even a few hundred years from now, will be staggering what has taken place. So that's what I see there. And you can put it all in perspective when you know, as Karen said, who you are, where you came from, and what your purpose and function is.
Okay.
Very-
Margaret, would you do me a favor and read the paragraph on 151, the second paragraph, and then comment on both of them? It just
Okay.
goes a little bit over into 152.
Okay.
The highest of all attainments. Do you have your home study course?
Yes. This highest of all the attainments of man, we are trying to open up to you through your continued growth of comprehension. Do not think it easy for you to acquire such a high goal overnight. That is impossible. Many write that they have followed our instructions carefully, but cannot decentrate to the stillness of zero, try how they may. The following is typical of many such questions. And then, did you want me to read the question?
No, go ahead and share on that. I just want to know, so this is about awakening
actually,
inside.
On the first paragraph, the building up the treasures in heaven rather than on earth. It's an old biblical reference, of course.
Yeah.
And so often I think a lot of people allow life to carry them through. In other words, they're always responding to circumstances. They're not really defining themselves and what they want to see in life. Many of them are not proactive in creating the kind of life that they would like. Many of them don't realize that they have that power to do it within themselves. Most people do react to life, and they react to social pressures. They react to bodily desires. But after reading the home study course, many students, they realize that they are the driver. They're in the driver's seat. They can create what they desire. And that's really the, I think, and that's a very powerful revelation for people to realize that, because so often people are asleep rather than awake. And so this course really does awaken people to all the possibilities that are around them, and that they know that they can create it for themselves.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. And to me, it was like, being told that, and like you said, in biblical terms, I've heard that, find the kingdom within, the works that I do are nothing to the works that ye shall do, and you're all sons and daughters of the Most High. But connecting to that in everyday life and find out what that means is that for me, I found out that my happiness lies with being true to myself inside, and to finding that rhythmic balance interchange in my thought life, my feeling life, and my action life that correlates, that comes from that meditation state or finding that joy within. I also like to focus on the idea that the God's state of mind is a perpetual state of ecstasy. So when I go into meditation, I usually try and find something that makes me feel that sense of ecstasy. And I believe we all have that in our personal relationships, to our animals, you can find that omnipresence around you everywhere of people you love. That's that loving energy. That's a great way for me to get into meditation, is to think in terms of the people I love, knowing that that's the state of God's mind. And I desire now in this moment to align myself with that state. And that's how I transport me a lot to get there. Because when I'm home, when I'm in that place, it is a feeling of love. It is that feeling of the ecstasy of creation. Mr. Bonzo's turned me on to Mozart, and we're told by the Russells to listen to classical music, because it'll wake up something inside you. And I love classical anyway, but now I've become this big Mozart fan, and I'm feeling moved by it. It's another level of inspiration, of the love that it takes to create that kind of masterpiece. And what I like to do is think about, what was it that Mozart first heard when he heard that symphony or that concerto or that opera, whatever it is that I'm listening to, right? Imagine, like, what were the first sounds in the mind of that musician, of that composer. And to know that God, that comes from the pool of God, the pool of the idea that God has, like the ocean. If you touch any of it, you touch all of it. But you can take a drop out and do what you want with it, and that would be considered similar to finding that joy inside. We all have that right to have that joy inside. Nobody can make you get there, but only thing that people can do is indicate that it is there. And what I love about this work is that we're shown how to get there. So on that note, I'd like to go to the question there. 152, it's the answer, and it's the second paragraph, but let's go ahead and read the answer there on 152, the first answer. And Jim, you want to go ahead and read that?
And before we do, can I make a comment?
Yes, of course. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Karen.
You've got to remember, Mozart was in the flow. He never said he wrote anything. He said it came from God. So this is very much aligned with Walter Russell's work. Be in the flow, listen, and you will get it. And I think in Mozart's last years, I think he was deaf. And so he didn't hear it in the conventional way that we understand it. He actually was still in the flow and wrote down the notes. So again, that's the other way that you can know that he was tapped into God.
Yeah, right. And he never had any corrections either, right?
He never had any corrections. He was always in the flow.
That's beautiful. Yeah, so he could literally write the whole concerto down or the symphony, and it would have no corrections. John knows a lot about that also. John's helped me to see a lot about the masterful work, and that's the point. Is there's so many masters to inspire us.
He heard it and wrote it, and he knew it was the symphony of the universe. He knew it was part of the harmonics within the spheres. He was actually playing the spheres music. Kepler understood the harmonics
All right.
of the spheres. We heard it and translated and put it down.
The sounds
So
of the
that's what
spheres,
you call it.
yes. The music of the
Yeah.
sphere, the music of the sphere is what the term is. Okay. Good. Very good.
Sorry.
Very insightful. Okay, so
Yeah.
no, what's all right. We're just trying to, how we try and keep flow going. All right, so 152, Jim, the answer there. Can you read that?
I can, but I want to take a second to point out what Margaret covered. Can we all collectively throughout the world take a nice deep breath and relax? Guess what? They just let us off the hook. You don't have to become illumined completely right now. Relax. Take your time. Take the steps. Take the path up the mountain with joy, but climb the mountain. See yourself there, but climb the mountain. So this is big to me. Every time we get to this part in the unit, I get back to it, and that reminds me. You're not required to become fully illumined overnight. And John has pointed out very well how Leo said you don't want to be. It's more, it separates you so much from the average man. So the answer to the question of the man was basically what we're talking about. How is it that I try so hard and can't meditate? Well, the answer is the more you can obtain that state, the easier it will be for you to repeat it. Your question indicates that you make too great an effort to accomplish that result. This means that you are concentrating upon having it happen instead of decentrating to let it happen. Boy, is that powerful. We all need to calm down and let it happen. And one of the greatest gifts I ever got from this material and from Mrs. Russell personally is being reminded that every time you have that inspirational moment, you just had a mini illumination. So we all have experienced it. We all have had that wonderful aha moment. The difference between a Dr. Russell and a Leo Russell is they have learned to hold it, and we are learning to hold it. And it's okay. It's okay if you have difficulty doing it. It's okay. Just keep doing it.
Ken?
Good. Okay, go to 153, Jim, just to wrap up on what you're saying and read that third paragraph, our light and our inspirations.
Our light and our inspirations, however, cannot re-inspire you immediately, for you always take instructions or readings first through your senses by recording them in your brain before they are finally absorbed by your soul to become knowledge. Just as you have to take food into your stomach first before it can be absorbed into the bloodstream to become nourishment. The great drawback to the unfoldment of inner vision is that what is recorded on most people's brains never passes beyond them to reach the soul.
Can you just read those last three sentences?
Sure.
On that part.
Very many even expect to obtain full cosmic consciousness immediately by applying our instructions. That is utterly impossible, as it is undesirable for one who is not ready for it. Students, you want me to read on?
No, that's good. I think that's a good little segment to help us to. I'm going to go to break that down a little bit of like why the steps are necessary, why we do need to process this, and how we get it to that place beyond our frontal cortex to our visceral to finally to our minds. How does it sink in? How does this get?
Let me jump in for a second, Ken. And I apologize, but when I was sitting on the desk at the university for over 3 years, and I received phone calls regularly from people who had had the brief experience of a shot of illumination. Often happens to people under 30, young people. And it's so messed with their lives because the first thing they wanted to do with that knowledge is share it with the world. I spoke to people that were put in institutions, that were drugged, that were cast out by their families, that told that they were subnormal, that were told that they were devil possessed, who have experienced this. So believe me, when you want to gently move into illumination, that's what you want to do. Because if you get too much too fast, the desire to share it with the world is overwhelming. And it can bring not some. It can end up making a martyr out of you in ways that you don't expect. So just, I don't know any other way to say it. Take joy in your gentle but steady climb up the mountain to enlightenment.
Margaret, you want to share on that part right there? Do you got anything you want to add to that?
Yes, Leo often said that people that are driven to alcohol and drugs, they're driven to try and forget their bodies. They may have had, inspirations, and then the regular world is boring to them. And so they're trying to seek that stillness really the wrong way, incorrectly, through stimulants. But very often people that do drink too much alcohol or do too many drugs, they are trying to forget the body. It's the incorrect way to develop inspiration. And that's why these teachings, could be so valuable to people that have had those issues. And also, just as Jim said, if people get it too quickly, an individual can create for themselves, unfortunately, a bit of a God complex. And then they're even ostracized more. So really, little at a time, steady as she goes. And then for each incremental gain, you can't really go back. Once you've had a flash or an inspiration that was very impactful, you can recall it. And it does bring you up one step further, that you're actually more insulated from the desire for stimulants. You're more insulated because that level of inward ecstasy is just one notch a little higher.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Very well said. That was really, and that explains a lot of why, not just drug and alcohol, but it could be social media now with all this electronic stimulation. I found myself falling into it myself. John Bonzo, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I wanted to try to give our audience an example of what everyone was saying and how the Russells are trying to present this home study course to them. And they're stepping stones. It's one step at a time. And I wanted to give people an example of what I experienced this morning. It was an after breakfast thing, and I had a CD in, and it was new. And it was a beautiful, beautiful Chopin Nocturne Opus 3. And it was brand new to me. But it immediately resonated with my soul, and I found myself at peace and at oneness with this piece of music and that flow. So whatever will help anyone. So whether it is sitting at the ocean or observing a sunrise or a sunset or a beautiful piece of music, use that as a stepping stone to gradually get to that point. It's not going to happen right away, but find something, all right, that is balanced and beautiful, that will ease you and move you along to that point of stillness.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and that's just it's an organic process. There's no finish line, and you're hearing such great tidbits, insights about how to do that. Karen, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm good. Well, I think maybe the only I'll make one comment. People that I know who've had the Kundalini awakenings, where they get that full and they happen overnight, their whole circuits are actually blown. And if you think of Walter Russell's illumination, where he went through the 9 octaves, I think it took him a while to get back and to be grounded in his body. It's almost like too much. It's like an electrical shock system that goes in, and it short changes people. So you want that gradual sort of hit. And for those who get that full knockout, sometimes it just unwires them some ways. I think Jim, that's kind of what you were saying in a way too. Yeah. So just an amplification of that one.
Short term, yeah. And then people call you fanatic or a little zealot, and that's what I think Margaret was talking about, is you can go a little bit too far in this, and it becomes the end all be all, and it could be for you, but trying to convince others is not our job. I think the great adage is don't offer counsel unless someone asks, but so when you just start saying, oh my God, you got to do this and do that, and it's next level. It was like goji berries, I remember, were like the thing, right, on an external level of like, oh, that'll make you healthy, it'll fix every ailment in your body. And it's green algae is what it comes down to, right? So I mean, and then it was green algae, and it was like that was the new thing. Green blue algae, not just green algae, green blue algae. So we go through these outer things of thinking it's going to awaken something, and the reality of it is, as we're reading that first paragraph, everything we're looking for is within us. And that's what I hope that everybody's getting from these, this expert panel that we have going on here. Let's go to 155, and Margaret, 154, can you read that second paragraph there?
Is it, let me see. Unfortunately, I have the very original version and it's not the same. Okay, the study of
it's okay.
metaphysics.
See the paragraph that says there are many throughout the metaphysical world who perpetually repeat.
Yeah, I'll read it off the screen
study
here.
Of metaphysics.
Yeah,
oh, there you
the
go.
study.
Okay.
The study of metaphysics, like university training, may give one much information without any real knowledge. Many great metaphysical authorities may be able to make many scientifically true statements of fact, but have no knowledge of them whatsoever. They would be unable to explain them if asked to do so. Such a metaphysical authority might be as completely unable to commune with God in his heart as a student of musical history and theory might be unable to compose even a simple melody, much less a concerto.
Can you read the next paragraph also with it?
Sure.
One more
Yeah.
down. Just go one more down, James. We'll read that next one also.
There are many
Go ahead,
throughout There are many throughout the metaphysical world who perpetually repeat the same scientifically true statements, but cannot explain them because they do not know what they mean. Affirmations and quotations without explanations are meaningless, even if true or authoritative. Of what benefit if a man says to you, "Be ye ever transformed by the renewing of your mind," if he does not also tell you how to renew your mind and what with?
Okay, so can you talk a little bit about that whole metaphysics and people that come from that world and what maybe they might want to look out for?
I think the way I read this is a person can have too much information, understanding. And so when you have too much information, I think it does more to confuse a person. And man has an excellent way of making life very complex. And our universities, our big universities throughout America, of course, have really made everything so complex. And so, they are looking at the details of the outer world without really understanding how they were created. In other words, they don't know the cause. And so once you know cause, you realize that life is very simple. It's not complicated. And so I think that's what the Russells are trying to say. In other words, you've got to know it in your soul. And so when John was inspired by the music the other morning, he was really re-inspired by Chopin, just as we as students of the Russells are re-inspired really by the Russells' teachings. And so, when you get too much information, I think it does more harm than good.
You get
You want
confused,
knowledge
I
rather
agree.
than information.
So we'll go to John, then we'll go to Karen.
Yeah, some people just like to hear themselves talk,
Thank you, Margaret.
and but you want to see something behind what they're saying. So you take a person like Mary Baker Eddy, for example, the second greatest healer next to Jesus.
Yeah.
She was able to back up her stuff, if you know what I'm saying, right? Those are the kind of people you want to listen to. All right. And I mean, I get it. We're all looking and we're all searching, and sometimes, we fall into some traps, but those that you are following, put a little pressure on them and have them, like the Russell said, have them put up, show me some facts, show me something, give me some detail, exemplify what you're talking about instead of boring me to death.
I love it. I love it. Karen.
For me, having worked with a lot of gifted kids, they come in different kind of packages, you might say. Some people who are considered highly intelligent have what I call rote. They have either photographic memories or rote memory, and it is not inspired stuff. And they may look incredibly smart, but if you were to go to the forest or go someplace with them, they wouldn't know what the heck to do. They can spouse it off, but they don't know it. And so I think it's one thing to be, it's like you can, doing something rote and doing something over and over doesn't give you passion. It doesn't give you that zest for life or that part of creativity. So just being knowledgeable without any context to why you're doing it, just like Mozart, he did it from his soul, he did it from his heart, he did it from the love of creation and the passion, a whole different thing. If you can go stock shelves 24/7 and you can do it, but it's not passionate, it's rote, it's boring, it's whatever. You want to be able to create from your soul, from your heart, from your passion. That's why it's important to live a passion, to live life, and to pursue the things that God's given you in that seed of you to do, and not to do some other person's seed because they told you to go do it. And because you learned it, but you don't love doing it, and it doesn't get you anywhere, and you're not inspired. There's no light and light. So that's
Beautiful, beautiful. Jim, did you want to share anything on that?
No, she nailed it.
Okay. Jim, why don't you go to 155 and read the second paragraph there into the third paragraph, second and third paragraph.
Starting with we want.
Yes, sir. There you go.
We want this to be thoroughly understood, for it is important to you that you know the difference between stating a fact, which really is a fact, and knowing it. We will give you a simple example to exemplify our meaning. For centuries, people have made these two true statements: God is love and God is light. Yet no one up to this day has any knowledge whatsoever of their meaning. Until today, the meaning of love has a sex connotation to the average man, and the meaning of light has never been defined or explained by science. Every scientific theory.
Can you scroll down a little bit, James, please?
Slow down?
No. The other
No,
James.
I was saying the other James.
Okay.
You're Jim. He's James.
Jim, I'm Jim. Forgive me. Every scientific theory of light is physical, one based upon waves and corpuscles. Should I go on or stop there?
Yeah. No, let's share on those two, please. That's good stuff right there. You can scroll up a little bit, James, so we can see that other pair. There you go, right there. Perfect. Okay.
If mankind ever knew the meaning of love, we would have had a different kind of civilization. Its significant meaning is the giving and re-giving. Pardon me, thank you. Its scientific meaning is the giving and re-giving of nature's process. In nature's process has never been known. Likewise, the scientific meaning of light, electricity, gravity, magnetism, energy, polarization, atomic structure, and many, many other things has never yet been known on Earth, and is being revealed in this course for the first time in human history. That's heavy.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Well, we're going to get
Yeah,
into
yeah.
it as we move into the science very much. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
I thought you
We'll go
went
to
to John.
John.
Okay.
We're going to John
Okay.
after you.
Yes. I wanted to re-emphasize that last sentence that Jim read. When he said, when the Russell said, for the first time in the course of human history, we got to hold that thought for just a moment and realize the power and what people have in their hands that have this home study course. And as they progress through it, what will be revealed to them are things that they'll never and have never gotten in school, never will get, but will through this home study course. And it's exciting. It's exciting to know that here we are only in unit 2. And think of the discussions that we've had and how gentle the Russells are in lead us into these great scientific discoveries that's going to happen. But yet we got 3 more units on love and man's character and all of that. So we're going to get there. But I just thought that line, it's beautiful. And the Russells, these teachings are about the only thing I can think of that you could actually use that line.
Right?
Yes.
That really okay, let's go to Margaret. That's beautiful, John. Margaret, what is it you see in that is just a powerful statement. We do need to seed on that, but that's beautiful. Go ahead, Margaret.
Yeah, when the Russells say God is light and God is love, it is true. It's always repeated, but people often don't really see behind the meaning of that. And I often share an occurrence that happened when I was living with Leo. She had attempted to take my father into the light. He was suffering with lung cancer, and she had hoped to heal him. And my brother was sitting in the hospital, as he often did in the evening, helping my father and reading to him. And this one particular day, and my brother actually recounted it to me later, but he said that my dad was unconscious, probably not really acknowledging what my brother was reading. But my brother said a presence came into the room, and he said it was so real. He said you could cut it with a knife. It was that real. So, and it was like a quietude, just a heavy presence that was elation. And my brother, when he recounts it, I can feel it, And so I often try to recall that story anytime that I want to experience love. Because when they say God is light and God is love, I think of it as that presence that my brother felt that came into the hospital room. It stayed with him an entire hour, and then he left to go to work, and it stayed with him throughout his working world. And it's something that he could just recall. So to me, when the Russells say God is love, that's what I think of.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you won't get that on TikTok.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Aaron, did you have anything you want to add to that? Yes, go ahead.
I do, because when I think of what he's saying for the first time, and I hear exactly what John Bonzo is saying, is this: the science meaning of giving and re-giving, which we know is part of, a tree plants its seed and it gives, it grows, and then it gives again, and it grows and it gives again. But it's always giving life. It's always giving something that has meaning. But when you think about it, the light, when we think of a light bulb, it's either dim, it's on, or it's off. And the more it's bright, the shiner, the more it attracts things. So the more it brings, it's more electricity it has. And that is actually now the new definition of you as being how much energy, how much charge you have. So he's talking about that. And the gravity that you pull and the wave and the amount of yummy things you pull in when you're light lit up, you attract like bees to honey, right? So you're actually gravitating to these things, and it's magnetizing the things that you want. So when you put that charged particles into the air, you will actually gravitate to the things, and they will gravitate to you because you're shining that vibration and that frequency. So it's really, he's talking about how it is, even in this moment, how we can make manifest by ourselves. He's giving us a toolbox to do that.
Mm.
So, I mean, this
Yeah.
right here is amazing. It's just giving you the science of living.
Mhm.
Turn off your right, do
Beautiful,
your thing
beautiful.
tonight. So that came to me. So yes.
Very powerful. And you remember, this is something so wonderful. It still has not been in human history. So what you are witnessing and participating in is not been shown to so much of the population and not been recorded in history, as I believe it's going to be. And we are part of that catalyst to that. Can we go? We're going to take a little break now. We got a 45-minute mark, so we're going to do 3-minute break. You'll get a little music. You guys get your legs unwound, and we'll come back and we'll wrap up some more and just take a little breather. Okay, so we'll take 3 minutes and do a little breather, and there'll be a little bit of media playing here, quotes and some music that James is going to show you. This is from Karen Elkins. We are back. Hello, everyone. Boy, you know, this little quote right here says so much. And I want everybody to know that if you are here and you're studying, it's taken you a long time to arrive to this position where you're at right now in your unfolding, all of us. And therefore, we're right where we're supposed to be all the time. That's part of living in that light and love. And I really enjoyed it. Everything everybody said there. In terms of light and love, for me, those are the two working pistons of life, right? And God is love, right? And light is what God uses to manifest what we call duality of this three-dimensional universe. So love is the desire behind it all. And that's why in nature, someone's beeping, in nature, you feel that connection because that's that omnipresence, right? And that omnipresence is nature and is us. We are omnipresent. In terms of that, God's mind is omnipotent and omniscient. All knowledge exists within the mind of God, and all power exists within the mind of God. That's what we're talking about when you enter into that state of meditation, and why it's stillness, because it's an undivided realm when you are in the mind. The brain is always firing actively. So let's go to page 154, and let's go ahead and no, I'm sorry, 155, excuse me. Go to the second paragraph. Nope. We just did that. My bad. Had wrong marks. We're going to 156, first paragraph there. And why don't you read that, Margaret, please? And you can see it up there. There it is. There are no vibrations.
Sorry. There are no vibrations whatsoever to the spirit. The light of the spirit is absolutely motionless, while the vibrations of matter increase with density and decrease as they approach the stillness of space. Such teachings are very confusing when one says in one breath, seek the high vibrations of the spirit, and in the next breath, be still and know.
Okay, one more paragraph down, please. Scroll down a little bit there, James, if you would. Thank you. Go ahead, Margaret.
There's one thing in particular which the Divine Iliad message teaches that no one has ever heard of before or taught. That is the principle of decentration, or expansion of the senses, in order to forget body and become wholly mind when in meditation or communion with God.
So you want to share on that there, Margaret, please?
Yeah. What I get out of that is I love the term decentration because you know the meaning of it right away. It's the opposite of concentration. And so usually if you think of a person's workaday world, they concentrate during the day to do their activity, to do their job, to take care of their children, take care of their family, their spouse. But in the evening, it's their opportunity to decentrate and to relax. And in decentrating, it's actually the opportunity to regenerate not just bodily energy, but also to regenerate or invite inspiration, because inspiration will always come from the stillness. And so when you decentrate, whether it's relaxing in the evening or through meditation, or even just a little afternoon nap, very often the inspirations will occur at that time.
Yeah, they call that, a lot of geniuses talk about the 10-minute nap, right? Einstein used to do a 20-minute naps. A lot of people record that they would nap for 20. I think Tesla did the same thing. Mr. Bonzo, you want to share a nap?
Yeah, I call them old man naps now, Ken. But the result is the same. Title's different, but the result is the same.
Yeah, we're all going there one way or the other.
I don't think I could add anything to what Margaret shared. It was beautifully done. I want to tell you how much I appreciate seeing Margaret's lovely face this evening, and to know the time that she spent with Leo, and to hear her speak as if Leo was here with us and saying it herself. So thank you, Margaret.
Yeah, actually, you know,
Right.
Leo always had a decentration period every afternoon toward 3 o'clock. Every afternoon, she had to have that. She was often speaking all day, whether it was on the phone or with people and students. And then at 3 o'clock, she would sneak upstairs and get in her 20-minute nap.
Nice.
That
Yes.
was her
Wow.
moment of decentration.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jim, you want to read that paragraph just below the one that Margaret finished up on there? It's on 156. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down. It's underlined. There you go. We'll wrap up on this one. We'll go to the next one after this. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, Jim is muted.
Jim, you got you yeah, there you go.
All right. Am I back
Thank
now?
you. Yeah.
Decentration is a relaxation of the senses to give freedom to the mind to conceive idea from its source, while concentration tenses the seat of sensation in the brain and prevents reaching beyond the electric activity of the brain into the stillness of the seat of consciousness, from where our knowledge comes. Pretty straightforward.
Can I make a thought on that?
Sure.
Because I decided to look up what the brain waves look like at different states, and the delta is got the calm, almost nothing. That's a place where you rest, and then the theta is where you do the dream and the learning. That's the other, and it starts getting a little wavy, and then after that you can tell relaxation is alpha, and then the waves get a little bit more jagged and bumpy in the beta and the gamma. So it's interesting. You can see in the wavelengths of the science, there's a science behind what people could not have seen before without the instruments. So the work here is right on with what we're learning with the different states, and they're relative to their wavelengths. And so the more quiet you are, you're getting into that stillness, and you're letting source come in. So just a thought.
Yeah, John, you want to read that? Margaret, can you read the final paragraph there that wraps that up? And then I'm going to go down to the bottom of 157. But go ahead and wrap up that one. Our teachings.
Our teaching regarding decentration is an entirely new principle, for no one has ever thought of or suspected it as an attribute of the mind until God gave us this knowledge and commanded us to teach it. You have read a few of the words of God's command in lesson number 7 as proof that this principle was never known before on earth, or if James could scroll up, as proof that this principle was never known on earth or had ever entered human consciousness, is that no word which covers that idea has ever been provided. The dictionary makes no provision for the thought, for the word decentration is not in it.
That's heavy.
Yeah, so we just got done talking about how important that is, and I think we need to keep going a little bit on that. What do you got on that, John?
I think it's
We'll
important
come back to you,
know,
Margaret.
as if we could have just backed up. I just want to reference backing up just a hair. And, you know, in some cases, you know, when it says here that the Russells said that God had given them the commandments of these teachings, and to give this word to man. And anytime you hear somebody say that phrase, right? Well, God told me this and God told me that. And you know what I mean by that? But this is a case where you have two 360 cosmic conscious illuminates telling you that it's time to move forward. It's time to grow a little bit. and the word decentration, came into vocabulary, just like the Russell said, it came to them directly from source. It's in the Iliad, and now here they use it repetitively in the first units here of the home study course. So it's important for the world to know, to man know what that actually means, because that's one half of their growth is learning how to do that. Because until then, it's just going to be a struggle over and over again.
It's a sense existence.
Yes.
There's a cute passage in the God Will Work With You But Not For You book where Leo recites an incident where one of her friend's children was fighting with her sister. And so the mother of the child said, well, why don't you sit in that chair in the corner and you talk to God on how to solve this problem?
Yeah.
And so the little child sat quietly for about 10 minutes. And then she got up off the chair and she told her mother, she said, God told me to kiss my sister and tell her I'm sorry. But what the child was actually doing was the child was decentrating. And so the inspiration of what she should do to remedy the fight came to her. And so it can be taught to children just as easily as to adults.
Oh, yeah.
If not easier, quite frankly. They don't have all the past and future blocking them, the worry of the future and the regrets of the past, that we have to deal with as we age, as we move along. Anybody else want to share something on that, any more on that? I think it's like a proof. Decentration is almost like a proof of a formula, if you will. If you were going to put it in scientific terms, even though it's unscientific, if you will, it's like a proof. It's saying, try it. The only scoffers are the ones that haven't tried it. But if you try decentration, you will find something. Just the concept of it will lead you of unwinding my thoughts as opposed to winding them up, and realizing that piston in life is why I get so worn down. I keep staying in my brain and I never allow myself to relax and unwind and decentrate for a while to recharge. You're ever tired? Go decentrate. Go walk in the other room. Go in a closet, talk to God, get centered with God. You get upset, get angry, go decentrate for a minute. Just what Margaret was saying about that little girl, and you will come out of it with a feeling of love, of the best feeling of when you get quiet. The best resolve is to just not fight. Do not resist, not that tension or that evil, if you will. Don't resist it, because it doesn't exist in your life. If you can get to that spot. So that's a great parable of God will work with you, but not for you, right? That's where that came from.
Yes. And then, when we talk of love is giving and then re-giving, I always think of the passage in the video, It's a Wonderful Life, when Jimmy Stewart is ready to throw himself off the bridge and his angel throws himself into the water so
That's
that
right.
Jimmy
That's
Stewart
right.
has to save him.
Yeah.
So in other words, the very act of giving is an immediate re-giving to that individual. So,
100%.
I always say to people, if they're a little bit lost in life, they should think of something they can do for another person. And then that in itself will give an immediate re-giving, because the person will come out of their funk because they're thinking of someone other than themselves. So I love that passage in that movie, though, because it's an immediate
My favorite movie of all
re-giving.
time. It's my
Pardon
favorite
me?
movie of all time.
Right.
It's my
right,
favorite movie of all time.
Right.
It's a Wonderful Life. That was a sleeper. They actually did that, a very low budget. It was just a contract thing. They had no expectations. And then it actually stayed on the shelf for 20 years before they released it. And it was after they released it for 20 years that it became such a classic and such a novel. It took 20 years for mankind to catch up to even the concept of what you're talking about right now.
Right.
And the nuances of what was said in there, it's a message of you have everything you want. You have everything you need. You would never throw your life away. It goes with that adage. If everybody sat in a circle and put all their problems in a hat, and then everybody got to review the hat, they'd probably take all their problems back, because they'd be looking at other people going, damn, man, I thought I was messed up, man. I thought I was carrying a load. You're carrying a load. You know, it's like you want your own stuff. You really do. And that is proof. I think I've got a screenplay myself that I've been working on developing that has that same premise. Anyway, let's go to 157 on that note. And Karen, why don't you read that last paragraph there on 157, and we'll reference Margaret just took us there. It's amazing how the intuition just goes towards this message. It's like as everyone's talking, it just pulls us along this message of the next level and the next layer. But go ahead, Karen.
Until human relationships are based upon the love principle of giving for regiving, which God gives as his own law of rhythmic balance, interchange in all interactions of man and nature, mankind will be on the descending direction of self-humiliation in mass, while we who do know and who live the love principle will survive. And out of these few, a new civilization will be born until the glory of God. I think that's okay. I will. Tell you.
No, if you want to stop there, that's fine.
No. I'll read on. There we go. Tell me what to do, boss.
Go ahead.
Okay. We tell you
just finish that paragraph up there.
Okay, present decade, the state of man in mass, whoever grows greed for possession, even the whole world ownership, as surely will break in his measure and his own breach of the law. The present wars of man are not manifest of killing for greed, and greed must disappear before love can be in the world. And so in relationship to the idea, God's word and the message is, if love be in the world, hate cannot be. So I think Buddha has a quote that says something like the idea that hate never solved any problem. Hate never solved any war. There's a saying to something to that degree. But I also think, it goes back to, we've talked about this before in other episodes, is when every nation goes to take from another what it has and leaves the people impoverished, which a lot of the big companies or the big world companies, whether it's been the United States or China or Russia or any of these big boys, go in to smaller countries and just literally rape the land and leave the people destitute. This is why we have the wars and the things. There's not balance. There's no balance. People can't live in a sustainable way. Yeah, with dignity. Nor can they.
I'm often when Karen read that passage, it looks pretty dismal, and I'm reminded of a comment Leo often made. She said, "I'm in the world, but I'm not of it."
Yeah.
In other words, when you see men in the mass creating such hardship for themselves and for others, you wonder, well, how can I insulate myself from it? Yes. And Leo just said, well, I'm not of this world. Even though we're all one, we're all subject, to the actions of men in the mass. But I think, when you have knowledge, you have a better capacity to insulate yourself from all those hurts, and you realize it's the entire drama of creation.
Yep.
And what we can do, as students of the Russells' work, is try and live our best life and hope that it rubs off to those in our immediate surroundings.
That's funny you should say that. We were just talking about the drama of creation last week and about, God being the master playwright, and that God doesn't get upset when the villain does something wrong and the good guy does something right, because it all ends to the good. Even when you do something wrong, fall down and scrape your knees, you've learned a lesson to not fall down or be out of balance, stay in balance. Otherwise, you're going to scrape your knees. And I think it also states that we are not our bodies. And, if you are your body, point to where you're at in that body. I always tell people, can you point to where you're at in that body? Because I can't. Go ahead, John. What you got?
No, I was just admiring Margaret glowing here this evening as she's talking about this message, because I know her story. And I remember her telling me that when she was in Northern Virginia and doing her real estate and living her life, and Ken, her story is a little bit like yours, right? Here's a lady that lived with Leo, right? Living in DC. There you are, 30-year student living in LA, and you don't have anybody to talk to.
Nope.
And to see her light up this evening and being able to reference these teachings that she knows so well, it's just beautiful to witness.
Well,
Yeah, I agree.
I admire that you and along with Kim Faith put all this together, because it's really brilliant. And then over time, you'll get a huge membership, I'm sure, and a tremendous viewership, because it is material that has not really been taught before. And
You know,
it's
and I
just
always
nice.
talk about you guys, what you guys bring to it is the application, which is the most important thing. It's like, okay, it sounds great. Now, how the hell do I live it? And that's what this is all about. This podcast is about helping show people how to live it. Jim, did you want to share that last segment? I felt like you were right in there with out of that message there about killing for greed and about our world going into the hell in a handbasket.
Well, that's the direction that the collective mass thoughts of humanity have taken us in. That's the falling back into the abyss of another dark age that the Russells warn about. But the gift that we have, and I've mentioned this many times before, that we are heading out of the Piscean age and into the Aquarian age. We're going out of murkiness and water and depth and darkness and into enlightenment of mind and thought. Man will begin to become much more sensitive to picking up deception in their fellow man. And because and mass start to be able to do that, the deceptions that have been carried on for thousands of years in society will not work anymore. And we're already seeing the destruction of that hold that the lost ones, I'll say, to put it gently, have had on humanity. We're not so easily deceived anymore. And more of us will become harder and harder to deceive. And as that happens, the transition will continue. And I think there will be bumps on the road, but I do not think we'll fall into another dark age. I think that we were moving very much into an age of new enlightenment that the Russells and many mystics have promised us.
I think it's interesting. I think, Ken, what it's also inviting here, not just to dwell on the Navy, I agree with Jim, is this is inviting us to elevate our civilization, and that we actually do the art, we do the beauty, we admire the music, and we put those back things in our lives in every which way that we can. And to be that, and that's the spark that everybody has within them. And interesting, when you think of television and all these things, they're controlling the air waves, which means they are attempting to control the narrative in the story. And as I agree with Jim, that we don't have to buy into the story anymore. We're beginning to see it as a story, and the stage thing that they're trying to do to predominate stories in our mind. And the way they have created the division and the opposites for the hate is ridiculous. But we've got to get to the point where we say, no, we're all one. And even what side of the aisle you are, they all want good things, I think, for the most part. But how you get there is another thing. So we just need to build our civilization like we built every other great civilization. We need to read, we need to be inspired, we need to create, we need to innovate. We can get there.
And stop thinking that our bodies are
hang on 1 second, Ken. Hang on. Above all else, don't go to war with what is perceived by you as darkness. It is falling of its own accord. Let it fall. Give light, give love, and move forward into the new age.
Don't let them take your kids to war.
Yeah.
Don't let your moms go.
Those are all things that have happened, and certainly can record that. But it's like we're talking about getting out of the body and entering into that true state of creativity and creation. It's a creative process. It's a creating universe. So if you want to live in it, you must be creating something. I know for me, I don't feel a sense of purpose unless I'm creating something and dedicating my energy towards that creation. And what you're witnessing right now, anybody who's watching this, is a group of people that have love this message and love life so much they want to share this message It's not easy to share this message. This is a journey, and you're going to hear that, but it's the layers and the journey that it takes. It took you a long time to get here, so be patient in the unfolding and know you've come so far to even be here. That's the real point. If you're here under the principle of love, because that's why we're here. We're manifesting the love principle in what we're doing and sharing this message. So I think that that's really important for all of us to recognize. I mean, you look at just what you're looking at right now. Is that how are you guys in your room right now? Yet I can see you on my screen as though I know you. I know all of you, so I see you. I feel the reality of you. Yet you're just a projected image through a camera. And is that not true when we walk in life? That's why none of this is real. It's just projected imaging. And we know that, again, I say it all the time, because how would all this world fit in your eyeball? How does your couch, your car, how does your business fit in your eyeball, right? But yet you go there every day. You never think of it. How does it transmit from that gigantic physical form that I think it is, that's real? It's not real. It's light. Otherwise, it wouldn't transfer. Just like if we weren't transferred into light, these camera images wouldn't be here on screen. It's transferred just like our brain transfers images of this three-dimensional universe, and it transmits light. We are light transmitters. We must condense these long waves to short waves into the brain cells to even get an image of what we're seeing. So I hope that makes sense. And to me, it was just learning that my body is not who I am. What I am is of love, and I am of light. That's what I am, right? That's how we begin to know, and we can start to say, my Father and I are one. When I know the light and I know love, not just abstractly, but can define that a meaning for me of what that means to me today. And love being the motivator for all creativity, right? You cannot create something wonderful if you don't add love into it. Think about food cooked without love. It just doesn't taste good. You can almost go to a restaurant. I can taste stuff nowadays, and I know it doesn't taste good. And then some restaurants, which you would think the food's going to be horrible, sometimes has the best food because it's made with love. It's always made with love. Every dish has love in it. You go to John Bonzo's house and in Margaret Rue's. I've been to Margaret's. I've had the pleasure of being to everybody's but Karen's. But you guys, there's love all around your life. There's love growing all around these people's lives. These aren't just words. The reason these people are on screen right now is because they're living that light of love. This is, the light doesn't know darkness, and darkness doesn't know light. So I totally agree. It's about aligning ourselves with that state of love and knowing that I am in this world, but I am not of this world. Because if I was, I'd be able to point to where I'm at in this world, right? If you're in this world, point to where you're at in this world. And I just don't see it, right? The real you, the you that I know, that I've gotten to know. Yes, Karen.
I'm commenting on somebody's talking about the figment of ether, and what we must be within your own energy. You have an energy field, just like the Earth has an energy field, and it has an etherical thing. And in that field is your lens, and that's where you project your simulation. That's your figment in the ether, and that's your field of which you dance in and take in and pull in light and other things. So yes, it is a figment of ether, but it is also your simulation within your field of light, the projections that come in, and these pixelated that go back to the very beginning, nothing but pixels of light. Yep. And as Walter Russell said, this is time to be recognized, we live in an electrical age of particles and waves. So he's stillness, and that field comes out with this whole matrix. And which part of that matrix are you going to dance in? And which pieces of those particles and reflections of light are you going to be in? That goes back to his box when you go to the museum and you look through the box and you see the mirrors and all those reflected mirrors. There's your figment of imagination in your own etherical bubble. There you go.
Yeah. Very good. If you haven't seen the box, you can go online and see that and check that out. It is there at the USP website. So you can go to the University there of Science and Philosophy and check out that box. They have a picture of it. And you know what, James? That'd be a good one to get on our 24-hour channels, that view of that inner box. We have that image somewhere. We'll have to get that to you. All right, so let's go to and wrap this up here. We've got about 10 minutes, it looks like, guys. So let's go off to, I wanted to read a little bit of Aryana and the Bhagavad Gita and why it was so important to Walter Russell. We can talk a little bit about that, but I think in just reading these words, and that's on page 160, last paragraph there, and it's the answer there that will go from. And does anybody want to speak on that? It's the Bhagavad Gita, Ayurveda. Anybody?
Ken, why don't you read it?
Okay. All illuminates speak the same language and words which may be differ, but in meaning which are identical. No matter what words are used by any past mystic, other mystics who follow always recognize the one meaning which is in all writings, or in the spoken words, such as those of Jesus, who did not leave any written record for posterity. We will quote some passages from the Bhagavad Gita, which sing their own glory in language unmistakable. And these are actual writings, and that's why you can, if you read the Divine Iliad, you'll see the similarities. That's for sure. Another sun gleams there, another moon, another light, not dusk nor dawn nor noon, which they who once behold return no more. They have attained my rest, life's utmost boon. I am what surveys. Only that knowledge knows which knows the known by the knower. Fain would I see as thou thyself declare it, sovereign Lord. The likeness of that glory of thy form wholly revealed, O thou divinest one. If this can be, if I may bear the sight, make thyself visible, Lord of all prayers. Show me thy very self, the eternal God. Those are words which pull you right into decentration. Those are words that take you right into that place. Just like when I read the Divine Iliad, it's like reading Shakespeare. It is, you got to read it a few times, but man, once you get some of that stuff inside you, it's like Margaret said, there's no going back. And many people here on this panel have said that. Once you cross through these thresholds, guys, and you start to touch this stuff, you just can't go back. Does anybody want to share on that part we just read?
Yes, I would like to, Kenneth.
Yes, sir.
You know, I mentioned this before, but I think it's a great time to bring it up again, is that in one of Dr. Russell's lectures, he reaches in his coat jacket and he pulls out his little pocket Bhagavad Gita. And he holds it up and he shows the audience and he says, I wouldn't take $1 million for my little Bhagavad Gita here. And he had his own little note. So these words that you're seeing on the screen, and what Dr. Russell was saying is, it's another illuminate recognizing the light of another illuminate. You can't mistake it. And it's important. And that's why the Russells entered this, is so that you can see that there are others. And this message is not new. Okay, it's been delivered many times, but now it's time for mankind, with the scientific advances and so on that man has made. He is ready to understand what real light is, and the light of God and what it is, and so on. So,
and that last part there, look, behold, this is the universe, which means you're in it. You're there right now. Look what is live and dead. I gather all in one. There is no separation. Life and death are all one. When you add life and death together, what do you get but endless repetitive cycles? In me gaze, as thy lips have said, on God eternal, very God. See me, see what thou prayest. That means if you pray, if you desire that light, it will come to you. It's your birthright. It's all of our birthright to know that kingdom within. That is what the Russells were teaching me, and I have learned from these lessons. This is my divine birthright, but I must work with some kind of paradigm to achieve it. It is not, I'm not going to find it in and of my uneducated self. And that's why this education that we're talking about is so significant. You can go look at the Divine Iliad and you will see absolute similarities in what you're reading right now. Does anybody want to read the rest of that?
Ken, could I just comment on one of the lines there?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
You see where it says, of many thousand mortals, one perchance striveth for truth. And of these few that strive, nay, and rise high, one only here and there knoweth me, that I am the very truth. And that statistic pretty much applies today too here, several thousand years later. If you can find one person in the middle, in a million, that you can have a conversation of the kind that we're having this evening, you're a lucky person.
Yeah. go walk around and see and read some of this to someone and see what they look at you. They'll look at you like a zealot or a fanatic. And really, it's just the words of truth. You can't argue with it. So that's beautiful. Thank you, John. That's really good. Anybody else got something to say on that?
Actually, yeah, just a quick little note. It's nice to know, like, this inspiration that we see from the Gita. It's nice to know that if we, and Rita in the chat had a question, and it was about decentration. And it says, she was asking for clarification that decentration is a relaxation of the senses. In other words, while we're engaged with our senses, very often we're not tuned into the stillness, because when you're in a body is motion. But if you're able to relax the senses and tune into the stillness, the inspiration that you see from the Gita or from the Russell's work, you carry it with you. It is your inheritance, and it simply needs to be reawakened. So by relaxing the senses and decentrating so that you can reach that still point, so that those inspirations will appear, that knowledge will appear. It'll come from out of the ethers.
I think of the word unwinding. Everybody says, let's unwind. It's the same kind of thing. Let's unwind. It's a very
Right.
Let's go to 162, James, very top there, and just finish up this Bhagavad Gita thing, because it really parallels with what we talk about the divided and the undivided. Who would like to read that? Jim, you'd like to read that?
Sure. For in this world, being is twofold, the divided one, the undivided one. All things that live are the divided. That which sits apart, the undivided.
Go ahead and finish that up there. Just those
I am
last
the
two lines.
spirit seated deep in every creature's heart. For me they come, or from me they come, by me they live. At my word they depart.
Okay.
That's the absoluteness of the divinity and of the source of your spirit. And the beauty of that, if you look a little bit deep into it, is that you are never lost by God, by your divine source.
Mm.
No matter how long it takes you to find your way up the mountain, it's always present with you and in all things. I've repeated it many times. You'll hear it throughout this course. I am within all things.
Yep.
This is Bhagavad Gita, centering them, without all things controlling them. But I am not those things. And there's the difference. As we try to learn to meditate, we meditate as body in sensed thinking. And it's learning to shut that down, not force it, just gently give it away. And you get better and better and better at that direct communion with Source. And then to hear the true masters, like the Nazarene, who tell us that we are one with Creator. That is such a jump. I mean, I even though I've had remarkable, wonderful situations and insights in my life, that is still, from my body self, hard to fathom. In my soul, I understand it to the degree that I can, but this statement from the Bhagavad Gita, I'm actually lucky enough, right in the other room, I've got a copy of the Bhagavad Gita that was Mrs. Russell's that she gave me. And I still carry it around with me and still read it to this day. It's gotten quite worn. So I agree with what we're talking about here. Mystics know mystics. Whether you're talking about the Christ, whether you're talking about Muhammad, whether you're talking about Buddha, whether you're talking about Jesus, Krishna, these people are all high mystics with great understanding of the workings of the universe and their place in it. And all they gave us is directions on how to do it ourselves. We're the ones that mess it up. We're the ones that begin to worship them instead of the message or understanding or seeking to understand the message that they give us. And then we finally, in this day and age, have the Russells come along and beautifully write it down in wonderful teachings of how to walk that road to our own enlightenment and grant us the authority to talk directly with Source. What a gift. What a gift.
And that quote that you said, Jim, was out of the Divine Iliad, not the
Yes, it is.
Gita.
It's one of my favorites.
Unity of all things.
Because it's
Yes,
the
sir.
reminder
All
that
right,
if God is not that, if God is within all things, centering and without all things controlling, and you are the spirit of divinity, then who are you? You are within all things centering, including your body, and without all things controlling them to the best of your knowledge, to discover your purpose here on earth, which is to manifest divinity. That's it. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to wake up to that. That's it.
Yep. Very good. All right, we're going to take a 3-minute break, one more 3-minute break, and we'll come back and do some question and answers, and we can all look at the comments and feed off of that and start answering some questions for people, okay? So we're going to take a 3-minute break. We'll get a water break or whatever you got to do, and we'll be back in 3 minutes. James is going to play a little bit of more of those quotes. We'll see some more quotes.
Let's see some of Karen's work.
let's thank Karen for that one. Wow, that's beautiful, Karen. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well done. It's really, God, that needs to be played on a 24-hour channel, but that's for sure.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to the comments. Has anybody got any comments they can see? Because this is not my forte. Questions. We got questions. Anybody got questions? Okay.
Someone
Karen
wants to know
may have-
about, hey, Ken, someone wants to know about the Bubble Girl painting at the university.
Well, then I think either you or John or Margaret would be the ones to talk about that.
I can give a brief
Let's let
talk
Bonzo
on it.
talk about it. Yeah, all right, go ahead.
You want, what it represents is the rising of the feminine. And I'm not talking about the rising of the female, although that needs to happen in our societies around the world. I'm talking about the rising of the feminine in all of us. And as the feminine rises and becomes equal and balanced with the masculine, they void each other out and divinity is born. The feminine in all of our natures has been repressed for thousands of years. So that represents the more base sensed feelings of humanity giving way to the higher ideals and the love principle that is coming into humanity. It's the re-give that they talk about, and it's well overdue. One little bit of information that Leo shared with us, and that she said we shouldn't talk about until after she's gone. She actually posed for that picture and loved what Dr. Russell purveyed there. So that's a brief statement on it. But if you could see it in its entirety, it's a magnificent picture, and it shows that awakening that's coming to humanity as the love nature of the feminine is finally awakened.
Is it like bubbling up, Jim? Is she bubbling up with her new nature? Is that what the bubbles stand for?
Yeah, I'm not in that. The bubbles are rising up. Yes, so to the awakening. Remember, it was humanity's fall to their feminine desires, not women's fall. Humanity's fall in their feminine physical nature for sense desire of things. That's what we fell to possess and to become body oriented. It's humanity's saving grace as we raise that feminine back up to its high state, and in the process, and keep in mind, I'm always talking about the feminine male. Every male is feminine masculine. Every female is masculine feminine. We're raising that fallen feminine away from the desire for things and senses to the love principle that it represents. And as we do this, all of humanity is on its way up, and that's what that represents to me.
So
That's
All right.
The only
Margaret?
thing I would add is, and I'm not sure when this painting was done, if it was prior to the Russells meeting or after, I'm not entirely sure, but I remember Leo, she always kept it behind closed doors, because I think it does, I think Dr. may have painted it prior to their meeting, but he changed the face to be Leo, the face and the hair to be
Well,
Leo.
there is another one, Margaret, that you'll notice when you see the shots of him in Carnegie Hall. There's another bubble girl in the background there, but it's not the same one as this. And the only reason John and I tell that story is because Leo literally told it to us.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So-
She posed for that, huh?
Well, she was the model for the beautiful young woman there.
well,
She
here's
was
the other thing.
beautiful.
When we look at the colors also represent the enlightenment. So she's very bright. She's yellow. She's illuminated. So I think that needs to be said. And that she's reaching to the sky. So she's reaching to the heavens. The part of her that's been deaf, that to the depth of the soul, is now rising. And
Yes.
I think what other people may not know is even through her, she was always a successful woman. And
Right.
even when Russell was down, she lifted him up.
Yes.
He was able to financially secure the things that they had because she had a beauty business.
Mhm.
And so in that, she rose with him to her own glory, found her mate that was her soulmate. So it's a beautiful bubbling up of her effervescent light to reveal.
Got a lot of blue in
That's
it,
well
which is
put.
right.
Yeah,
The
that's
blue
well
and the
put.
blue energy.
Sorry, Ken. I'll keep it short. That's well put, Karen, because if her whole life represented the uprising of the feminine, the love principle. She was literally a universal mother that came to uplift humanity. And Dr. Russell made it very clear in many writings and letters that he has, and even in his presentation to her, God will work with you, but not for you, that without her, and Margaret knows this, and John knows this, without her coming into his life, all that we have in these teachings and this museum would have been lost to humanity. It was she that brought it together and manifested and created the beauty that is the museum and the complete writings that now exist between the two of them. So yes, that's the rise. That's absolutely, Karen, the rising of the feminine, and she represents.
Yeah, it's interesting because she nurtured. She, as a mother would do, she nurtured the work, and again, as a teacher, as a lot of women are teachers, she became the teacher in it when he departed. So yeah, so he was the seed, and then she actually brought it to fruition on the planet. She seeded it and made it grow.
Keep that in mind. In his introduction, in the God will work with you of her, he literally points out that he had the privilege of knowing the greatest minds of that age. Intimately, he knew them.
Yeah.
Yet hers is the greatest that he'd ever known. So give this beautiful woman credit. All that we are sharing with the world would not be here without him. I mean, without him through his illuminations, and her through her knowing, giving it out to humanity.
Margaret, somebody's asking what was the business product? So what was, I forget what it was.
Yeah, it was largely, I would say, personal beauty care and also fitness.
Yes.
She was very big into fitness, and she, of course, was very stunning at that time. She could have been a model, really. And I remember she told me that when she came to America, she made a trip out west, thinking that maybe she would become an actress. And she was taking classes, and her teacher said to her, Leo, you can only be yourself. You can't be else, so she could really only be herself. And what was interesting, she said on her drive out west, she said she would be driving, and before she knew it, she would be like, 3 hours ahead. In other words, she would be out of her body while she was driving. She would be in the light, and she obviously could still drive, but it was a decentration. And I'm not saying anybody should do it while they're driving, but I just remember that story she told me. Another interesting point about both Walter and Leo Russell is the fact that they were both prepared to give this message together. And so it's something that they both had a premonition of each other. In other words, when Leah was only 17, she wanted desperately to go to America. This was during the period then when Walter Russell was in his illumination. She had a sense for what was happening to him, and she wanted to go to America. And of course, her elder sister would disallow it. But it was years later, probably 25 years later, and she said Walter Russell was still being prepared to be ready to give this message with her. And she often said that if they had met sooner, Walter Russell may not have listened to her. So in other words, there's always a time for something to occur. And Walter Russell, in his speeches, he talks of the little blue girl. So in other words, he also had a premonition of her coming, and they actually communed telepathically even prior to their meeting, which is interesting. But Leo recounts this in her story of her illumination in Unit 2, and it's a very powerful passage.
Yeah, we just went through it last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Ken?
that was what we were talking about. It's good to hear. Yes, sir.
I'd like to add something to the bubble girl to just let
Yes.
people know the kind of lady that Leah Russell was, a lady of discretion and a lady of character and presence and dignity. And, she never had the bubble girl on display at Swannanoa Palace. I think it was more of a personal thing of hers and Doctor's, something that they shared together. And she didn't really want it to be in the public eye, but so it's out and it's hanging and and there it is. But I'm just
Her
saying,
physical form was refolded.
yes.
But that's again, it's like we all have a destiny. It's not about comparing it to somebody else's. I think what the Russells illustrate is that we're all, and that's what we hear over and over again. The light is within. You're all genius and all mystics when you know you are. And that's how we get there. This is what we're talking about. Is they're showing us how they got there. They can't take us there, but they can show us the way. And that's what we're being shown. And what great story, legacy that we keep alive is so important to know where this all comes from. So your guys' download is just critical to this message. Do we have any more questions on the there from anybody in the comment section? I saw one about someone looking up decentration in the dictionary, and as it was illustrated in the readings, you won't find it in the dictionary because there's no word like that. That's how, well, the illustration was that it's never been known before, or the practical application. It's not just a word, it's an application. And as Margaret said, it's not that hard to understand. If you look at concentration, you say decentration, you kind of get the idea of it. So it really is not difficult like we try and make it. It's not hard to get to God. Desire is the transporter, though. You won't get there through intellectual. Desire, that soul-to-soul communion with ecstasy, with the perpetual state of mind in ecstasy. That means exceedingly content and fulfilled. That's why I, talk about using the love, people I love, as a transport to get into that rhythmic feeling and then connect that to God and to the light of God in meditation. That transports me every time, is to just to realize that God's state of mind is a perpetual state of ecstasy. When I feel that ecstasy, then I am there at one with God. Do we have any more questions?
Are we going to then wrap it up and make sure they? I don't think so. I don't see them.
Okay. All right. Then we've done good. So upcoming events. Karen, you wrote this. Oh, no, that's already been done. That guy's an amazing speaker. You should definitely check him out. I would check him out. I think.
Is that available somewhere for people to actually replay?
I'm working on that. I don't know yet.
We're working
on that. Yeah, it's not available at this point right now. I haven't got the link. I know that it will be coming. So thank you very much for asking, and we'll definitely make it available. It was I had a great time. It really went off really well, and seemed like a great
Kimberly
message.
said you did an amazing job.
Thank you. Yeah, it felt good. The amazing job to me is feeling that presence of love, just doing it from love. Everything done from love is done masterly. You never cut corners when you're doing it with love. It just doesn't happen. So, all right, guys, thanks so much. And Kimberly now is coming up to speak here in August 24th. She's going to be at the museum speaking on the cosmic romance and invitation for a greater love in your life. What a beautiful theme. And I think it's going to be extremely powerful. So I hope that you can attend that. And then we're going to be, actually before that, we're doing the Tesla Tech. And Karen, why don't you share us a little bit about what's going on there at Tesla Tech?
Got 5 days. We've got 25 speakers, and from Greg Braden to nuclear physicists to quantum physicists to Kimberly and I are going to be there, and we're going to speak on the Walter Russell work in an evening. We're going to measure out how it feels with different apparatuses that we have. So it's 5 days, 25 speakers, and now it's being live streamed. So if you can't make it, go to teslatech.live, and for $99, you can replay 25 speakers for the rest of your life. And there's just a great diversity of people showing up, and I have a good time every time I go. So join us one way or the other, whether you can join us in person or what. And Margaret's going, Ken, you're going.
Yep.
And I'm going, Kimberly's going, and Jim's not going. And John's not going. We will miss you. But a lot of the clan will be there representing the Walter Russell work. So thank you.
Where we go one, we go all. And so
Yeah,
now let's look at
it.
August. In August, we're going to be doing Unit 3. We're going to start on the 4th Unit 3, Lesson 9, Higher Knowledge, the Science of Man. The next 4 lessons, I didn't get to read it, but I just wanted to read it really quick because it's written in here about what the next 4 lessons are going to be. Give me a second, and I will pull it up right here.
The titles are right there on the title. The titles are there, Ken.
Okay, go ahead.
It's higher
Okay,
knowledge of
on 167, the home study course, it states in here, your next 4 lessons are extremely important, for in them we will explain the heretofore unknown meaning of what mother, father means when we speak of God that way. No one yet knows what it means, nor how basic is this tremendous idea of creator as being father, mother of this sex-divided electric universe. When you get these lessons, you will realize the fundamental import of the father-mother principle in every thought and action of your life and of all nature's phenomena. So that's what the next 4 lessons are going to be, just as a brief overview. They're very important as we're led into them. The meditation is such an important part because we now take this power into this lesson so we can go deeper. And that's why bringing God into the first 2 units and building that relationship, that living relationship, so that it can be here right now while we study these lessons and talk and ask questions and learn together and share together and learn from each other. It's just a beautiful process. And so the next 4 lessons are going to be real strong, as John had mentioned earlier. And then you can see up here where we're going and where we're heading. Everybody, thanks so much. Is there anything else we got up here, James?
No, thank you so much, Ken. This has been great.
You know what, Margaret? You have been awesome. Oh, John's gone. See, he slips out. He just says, bye. See ya. I don't want to be here. Anyway, Margaret, thank you. And I hope you will come back and join us, because what an asset you bring and another element that was just really wonderful to bear witness to. So it's so great having you here.
All right.
Thank
you.
Thank you,
Good to
Karen,
see you.
Jim, and John Bonzel, who said goodbye. Thank you, guys. Everybody have a great night, and we will see you guys next week, August 4th, and we'll be doing Unit 3, Lesson 9, and we're looking forward to it, and we'll see you guys then. Thanks again, and much